All right, hi class. Today's 152. It's Tuesday, May 5th, and we are going to be continuing with the lightning thief. So today our objective is analyze how Percy's relationship with his father has changed over time. So in order for us to be able to do that, we need to first analyze what his relationship with his father was in the beginning. Then we analyze what his relationship with the father is like in later in the book, and then we basically compare and contrast those things. So we talk about how it changed. So, what's different about the relationship now than it was in the beginning? So, we're going to start by first thinking about the relationship in the beginning of the story and making an inference and finding our evidence to support that inference. So, that's what we're going to do together for our model. Then you're going to actually, after we're done reading, get to do the next part on your own and then explain it down here how it changed. So, in the beginning of the story, how does Percy say he feels towards his father? So I remember in the beginning of the story, after his father claims him, he kind of starts to realize that this is putting him in a lot of trouble. And his father still doesn't come down to say hi to him. There's no interactions with his father. So in the story, is he proud of his father? Is he embarrassed of his father? Is he angry of his father? Is he cheerful towards his father? So I already know one that I'm going to say is not true is he's not cheerful. He's not even if he thinks his father is cool that he's God, he's not happy about that necessarily. He's not embarrassed because his dad hasn't done anything embarrassing. He's a God and he's well known. So now we have to decide, was he feeling proud of his father? Is he wow, he's the best? Or is he kind of angry with his father? So I know he's not proud of his father because later in the story, he talks about how he doesn't care about his father. He talks about how his father doesn't care about him. So he's not feeling particularly proud. He's pretty angry with his dad that his dad has never done anything for him. That his dad left his mother, and that his dad is now basically not claiming him, and he's going on this, or he claimed him, but now he has to go on this quest where he could possibly die and his something could happen to his friends. So the correct answer is C, he's angry. So what evidence proves that? You will be exposed at Poseidon's thief, and I will have you as my helm. I will have my helm back. So that's Hades talking. So that doesn't necessarily show us that he's angry. So I'm going to get rid of that one because that's not talking about how Percy feels. You feel good that he claimed you. So that's Grover talking. And that's Grover telling him how he feels. That doesn't prove that he's angry. That would actually prove that he's proud. So let's see. And that's actually not showing us how Percy feels. That's what Grover thinks. I am Poseidon's kid. So that would show maybe that he's proud, but I don't think that he is proud. I think he's just stating that as a fact, so that's not going to prove it. I'm not doing it to help my father. He doesn't care about me, and I don't care about him. So that would show me that he's angry. He doesn't care about me, I don't care about him. So I'm going to, again, unhighlight all of, oops. I'm going to unhighlight these. And then I'm going to type my answer here. So the answer is D. So in the beginning of the story, he's pretty angry with his father. He doesn't care about him. He doesn't think that his father cares about him at all. So now, as we read, we want to see if this relationship starts to change. Because right now, he's not doing this for his father. He's doing this to save his mother. And he's not feeling any way good or proud of his father at all. So we're going to find out if that changes at all. And then we'll read about it. So we are on chapter 21. I settle my tab, part 1. So we're going to read the part 1 today and then part 2 tomorrow. And we will be done with the book by the end of the week. All right, let's get going. It's funny how humans can wrap their mind around things that fit into their version of reality. Chiron had told me that long ago. As usual, I didn't appreciate his wisdom until much later. According to the LA News, the explosion at Santa Monica Beach had been caused when a crazy kidnapper fired a shotgun at a police car. He accidentally hit a gas main that had ruptured during the earthquake. This crazy kidnapper, aka Ares, was the same man who had abducted me and 2 other adolescents in New York and brought us across the country on a 10-day odyssey of terror. Poor little Percy Jackson wasn't an international criminal after all. He had caused a commotion on that Greyhound bus in New Jersey, trying to get away from his captor. And afterward, witnesses would even swear they had seen the leather-clad man on the bus. Why didn't I remember him before? The crazy man had caused the explosion in the St. Louis Arch. After all, no kid could have done that. A concerned waitress in Denver had seen a man threatening his abductees outside the diner, gotten a friend to take a photo, and notified the police. Finally, brave Percy Jackson, I was beginning to like this kid, had stolen the gun from his captor in Los Angeles and battled him shotgun to rifle on a beach. Police had arrived just in time, but in the spectacular explosion, 5 police cars had been destroyed and the captor had fled. No fatalities had occurred. Percy Jackson and his 2 friends were safely in the police custody. Pause there. So obviously, this is not really what happened, but this is the story they're telling the humans that happened so that it all makes sense. Because otherwise, what they saw back at the beach would have seemed crazy and would have gotten Percy in a lot of trouble. Reporters fed us this whole story. We just nodded and acted tearful and exhausted, which wasn't hard, and played the victimized kids for the cameras. All I want, I said, choking back my tears, is to see my loving stepfather again. Every time I saw him on TV calling me a delinquent punk, I knew somehow we would be okay, and I know he'll want to reward each and every person in this beautiful city of Los Angeles with a free major appliance from his store. Here's the phone number. The police and reporters were so moved that they passed around a hat and raised money for 3 tickets on the next plane to New York. I knew there was no choice but to fly. I hoped Zeus would cut me some slack, considering the circumstances, but it was still hard to force myself on board the flight. Takeoff was a nightmare. Every spot of turbulence was scarier than a Greek monster. I didn't unclench my hands from the armrests until we touched down safely at LaGuardia. The local press was waiting for us outside security, but we managed to evade them thanks to Annabeth, who lured them away in her invisible Yankees cap, shouting, "They're over by the frozen yogurt! Come on!" Then rejoined us at baggage claim. We split up at the taxi stand. I told Annabeth and Grover to get back to Half-Blood Hill and let Kyron know what had happened. They protested, and it was hard to let them go after all we'd been through, but I knew I had to do this last part of my quest by myself. If things went wrong, if the gods didn't believe me, I wanted Annabeth and Grover to survive to tell Kyron the truth. I hopped in a taxi and headed into Manhattan. So where's Percy going right now if he has to finish the quest? Let's find out. 30 minutes later, I walked into the lobby of the Empire State Building. I must have looked like a homeless kid with my tattered clothes and my scraped-up face. I hadn't slept in the last 24 hours. I went up to the guard at the front desk and said, 600th floor. He was reading a huge book with a picture of a wizard on the front. I wasn't much into fantasy, but that book must have been good because the guard took a while to look up. No such floor, kiddo. I need an audience with Zeus. He gave me a vacant smile. Sorry? You heard me. I was about to decide that this guy was just a regular mortal and I'd better run for it before he called a straitjacket patrol when he said, "No appointment, no audience, kiddo. Lord Zeus doesn't see anyone unannounced." Oh, I think he'll make an exception. I slipped off my backpack and unzipped the top. The guard looked inside at a metal cylinder, not getting what it was for a few seconds. Then his face went pale. That isn't... Yes, it is, I promised. You want me to take it out and... No. He scrambled out of his seat and fumbled around his desk for a key card, then handed it to me. Insert this in the security slot. Make sure nobody else is in the elevator with you. I did as he told me. As soon as the elevator doors closed, I slipped the key into the slot. The card disappeared and a new button appeared on the console, a red one that said 600. I pressed it and waited. Music played. Raindrops kept falling on my head. Finally, ding, the doors slid open. I stepped out and almost had a heart attack. So now listen for some descriptive language in this next part and for the setting and start to think about what the mood of the story is. Finally, ding, the doors slid open. I stepped out and almost had a heart attack. I was standing on a narrow stone walkway in the middle of the air. Below me was Manhattan. From the height of an airplane, in front of me, white marble steps wound up the spine of a cloud into the sky. My eyes followed the stairway to its end, where my brain just could not accept what I saw. Look again, my brain said. We're looking, my eyes insisted. It's really there. From the top of the clouds rose a decapitated peak of a mountain, its summit covered with snow. Clinging to the mountainside were dozens of multi-leveled palaces, a city of mansions. All the white columned porticos, gilded terraces, and bronze braziers glowing with 1,000 fires. Roads wound crazily up to the peak, where the largest palace gleamed against the snow. Precariously perched gardens bloomed with olive trees and rose bushes. I could make out the open-air market filled with colorful tents, a stone amphitheater built on one side of the mountain, a hippodrome and a coliseum on the other. It was an ancient Greek city, except it wasn't in ruins. It was new and clean and colorful, and the way Athens must have looked 2,500 years ago. This place can't be here, I told myself. The tip of the mountain hanging over New York City, like a billion-ton asteroid. How could something like this be anchored above the Empire State Building, in plain sight of millions of people, and not get noticed? But here it was, and here I was. My trip through Olympus was a daze. I passed some giggling wood nymphs and threw olives at me from the garden. Hawkers in the market offered to sell me ambrosia on a stick, and a shield and genuine glitter weave replica of the Golden Fleece, as seen on Hephaestus TV. The 9 muses were tuning their instruments for a concert in the park, while a small crowd gathered, satyrs and naiads and a bunch of good-looking teenagers who might have been minor gods and goddesses. Nobody seemed worried about an impending civil war. In fact, everybody seemed in a festive mood. Several of them turned to watch me pass and whispered to themselves. I climbed the main road toward the big palace at the peak. It was a reverse copy of Palace in the Underworld. There, everything had been black and bronze. Here, everything glittered with white and silver. Pause there. So that is like a super descriptive setting. They're up in the clouds above the city of Manhattan. Everything's white and glittery and beautiful. There's palaces everywhere, and they're like in the clouds. So this is like a really like dream-like mood. So let's keep going and see. I realized Hades must have built his place to resemble this one. He wasn't welcome in Olympus, except on the winter solstice. So he built his own Olympus underground. Despite my bad experience with him, I felt a little sorry for that guy. To be banished from this place seemed really unfair. It would make anybody bitter. Steps led up to the central courtyard. Past that, the throne room. Room really isn't the right word. The place made Grand Central Station look like a broom closet. Massive columns rose to a domed ceiling, which was gilded with moving constellations. 12 thrones, built for the beings the size of Hades, were arranged in an inverted U, just like the cabins at Half-Blood. An enormous fire cackled in the central hearth pit. The thrones were empty except for 2 at the end, the head throne on the right and the one to its immediate left. I didn't have to be told who the gods were that were sitting there, waiting for me to approach. I came toward them, my legs trembling, so he's feeling a little nervous. The gods were in a giant human form, as Hades had been. But I could barely look at them without feeling a tingle, as if my blood were starting to burn. Zeus, the lord of the gods, wore a dark blue pinstripe suit. He sat on a simple throne, solid platinum. He had a well-trimmed beard, marbled gray with black, like a storm cloud. His face was proud and handsome and grim, his eyes rainy gray. As I got nearer to him, the air crackled and smelled of ozone. The god sitting next to him was his brother, without a doubt. But he was dressed very differently. He reminded me of a beachcomber from Key West. He wore leathery sandals, khaki Bermuda shorts, and a Tommy Bahama shirt with coconuts and parrots all over it. His skin was deeply tan, his hands scarred like the old-time fisherman's. His hair was black like mine. His face had the same brooding look that had always gotten me branded as a rebel. But his eyes, sea green like mine, were surrounded by sun crinkles that told me he smiled a lot too. His throne was deep fisherman's chair. It was simple, swiveling kind, with black leather seat and built-in holster for fishing pole. Instead of a pole, the holster held a bronze trident, flickering with green light around its tips. The gods weren't moving or speaking, but there was a tension in the air, as if they had just finished an argument. I approached the fisherman's throne and knelt at his feet. Father. I dared not look up. My heart was racing. I could feel the energy emanating from the two gods. If I said the wrong thing, I had no doubt they would blast me into dust. To my left, Zeus spoke. Should you not address the master of this house first, boy? I kept my head down and waited. Peace, brother, Poseidon finally said. His voice stirred my oldest memories, that warm glow I remembered as a baby, the sensation of the god's hand on my forehead. The boy defers to his father. This is only right. You still claim him, then? Zeus asked menacingly. You claim this child, whom you sired against our sacred oath? I've admitted my wrongdoing, Poseidon said. Now I would hear him speak. Wrongdoing. Sorry, I lost my spot. Wrongdoing. A lump welled up in my throat. Was that all I was? A wrongdoing? The result of God's mistake? I have spared him once already, Zeus grumbled, daring to fly through my domain. Pah! I should have blasted him out of the sky for his impudence. And risk destroying your own master bolt, Poseidon said calmly. Let us hear him out, brother. Zeus grumbled some more. I shall listen, he decided. Then I shall make up my mind whether or not to cast this boy down from Olympus. Perseus, Poseidon said, look at me. I did, and I wasn't sure what I saw in his face. There was no clear sign of love or approval, nothing to encourage me. It was like looking at the ocean. Some days you could tell what the mood was. Most days, though, it was unreadable, mysterious. I got the feeling Poseidon really didn't know what to think of me. He didn't know whether he was happy to have me as his son or not. In a strange way, I was glad Poseidon was so distant. If he'd tried to apologize or told me he loved me, or even smiled, it would have felt fake, like a human dad, making some lame excuse for not being around. I could live with that. After all, I wasn't sure about him yet either. Address Lord Zeus, boy, Poseidon told me. Tell him your story. So I told Zeus everything, just as it had happened. I took out the metal cylinder, which began sparking in the sky god's presence, and laid it at his feet. There was a long silence, broken only by the cackle of the hearth fire. Zeus opened his palm. The lightning bolt flew into it. As if he had closed his fist, the metallic points flared with electricity, until he was holding what looked more like a classic thunderbolt, a 20-foot javelin of arcing, hissing energy that made the hairs on my scalp rise. I sense the boy tells the truth, Zeus muttered. But that Ares would do such a thing, it is most unlike him. He is proud and impulsive, Poseidon said. It runs in the family. Lord, I asked. They both said yes. Ares didn't act alone. Someone else, something else, came up with the idea. I described my dreams and the feeling I'd had on the beach and that momentary breath of evil that had seemed to stop the world and made Ares back off from killing me. In the dreams, I said, the voice told me to bring the bolt to the underworld. Ares hinted that he'd been having the dreams too. I think he was being used just as I was to start a war. You are accusing Hades after all, Zeus asked. No, I said. I mean, Lord Zeus. I've been in the presence of Hades. The feeling on the beach was different. It was the same thing I felt when I got close to that pit. That was the entrance to Tartarus, wasn't it? Something powerful and evil stirring down there. Oh no. 1 minute, you guys. I will get this done. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Give me 1 minute. Here we go. Something powerful and evil is stirring down there, something even older than the gods. Poseidon and Zeus looked at each other. They had a quick, intense discussion in ancient Greek. I only caught one word: father. Who was their father again? Kronos. Keep that in mind. Poseidon made some kind of suggestion, but Zeus cut him off. Poseidon tried to argue. Zeus held up his hand angrily. We will speak of this no more, Zeus said. I must go personally to purify this thunderbolt in the waters of Lenin, to remove the human taint from its metal. He rose and looked at me, his expression softened just a fraction of a degree. You've done me a service, boy. Few heroes could have accomplished as much. I had help, sir, I said, Grover Underwood and Annabeth Chase. To show you my thanks, I shall spare your life. I do not trust you, Perseus Jackson. I do not like what your arrival means for the future of Olympus. But for the sake of your peace in the family, I shall let you live. Thank you, sir. Do not presume to fly again. Do not let me find you here when I return. Otherwise you shall taste this bolt, and it shall be your last sensation. Thunder shook the palace. With a blinding flash of lightning, Zeus was gone. I was alone in the throne room with my father. Your uncle, Poseidon sighed, has always had a flair for dramatic exits. I think he would have done well as the god of the theater. An uncomfortable silence. Sir, I said, what was in that pit? Poseidon regarded me. Have you not guessed? Kronos, I said, the king of the Titans. Even in his throne room of Olympus, far away from Tartarus, the name of Kronos darkened the room, made the hearth fire seem not quite so warm on my back. Poseidon gripped his trident. In the first war, Percy, Zeus cut our father, Kronos, into 1,000 pieces, just as Kronos had done to his own father, Uranus. Zeus cast Kronos' remains into the darkest pit of Tartarus. The Titan army was scattered. Their mountain fortress on Etna destroyed, their monstrous allies driven to the farthest corners of the earth. And yet Titans cannot die, any more than we gods can. Whatever is left of Kronos is still alive in that hideous way, still conscious in eternal pain, still hungering for power. He's healing, I said. He's coming back. Poseidon shook his head. From time to time, over eons, Kronos has stirred. He enters men's nightmares and breathes evil thoughts. He wakens restless monsters from the depths. But to suggest that he could rise from the pit is another thing. That's what he intends, Father. That's what he intends, Father. That's what he said. Poseidon was silent for a long time. Lord Zeus has closed discussion on this matter. He will not allow talk of Kronos. You have completed your quest, child. That is all you need to do. But, I stopped myself. Arguing would do no good. It would very possibly anger the only god who I had on my side. As you wish, Father. A faint smile played on his lips. Obedience does not come naturally to you, does it? No, sir. I must take some blame for that, I suppose. The sea does not like to be restrained. He rose to his full height and took up his trident, then shimmered and became the size of a regular man, standing directly in front of me. You must go, child, but first, know that your mother has returned. I stared at him, completely stunned. My mother? You will find her at home. Hades sent her when you recovered his helm. Even the Lord of Death pays his debts. My heart was pounding. I couldn't believe it. Do you? Would you? I wanted to ask Poseidon if he would come with me to see her, but then I realized that was ridiculous. I imagined loading the god of sea into the taxi and taking him to the Upper East Side. If he wanted to see my mom all these years, he would have. And there was the smelly Gabe to think about. Poseidon's eyes took on a little sadness. When you return home, Percy, you must make an important choice. You will find a package waiting in your room. A package? You will understand when you see it. No one can choose your path, Percy. You must decide. I nodded, though I didn't know what he meant. Your mother is the queen among women, Poseidon said wistfully. I had not met such a mortal woman in thousands of years. Still, I am sorry you were born, child. I've brought you a hero's fate, and a hero's fate is never happy. It is never anything but tragic. I tried not to feel hurt. Here was my own dad telling me that he was sorry I'd been born. I don't mind, Father. Not yet, perhaps, he said. Not yet. But it was an unforgivable mistake on my part. I'll leave you then, I bowed awkwardly. I won't bother you again. I was 5 steps away when he called. Perseus! I turned. There was a different light in his eyes, kind of fiery, kind of pride. You did well, Perseus. Do not misunderstand me. Whatever else you do, you know that you are mine. You are the true son of the sea god. As I walked back to the city of gods, conversation stopped. The muses paused their concert. People and satyrs, naiads all turned toward me, their faces filled with respect and gratitude. And as I passed, they knelt, as if I were some kind of hero. All right, that is the end of part 1. So for your assignment today, you need to say, I'll change this so that you need to say, what does Poseidon feel towards Percy? Is he proud, ashamed, embarrassed, or humiliated? Proud, meaning he is happy. Ashamed, meaning he's upset. Embarrassed, we know what that means. And humiliated would also be you're upset or not happy about it. And then find your detail to support it. And then most importantly, down here you need to explain how does their relationship change. So use what we learned up here and what your answer is down here to show how it changed, and make sure you write in complete sentences. Tomorrow we will start chapter 21, part 2. Bye.